What separates a good competitive Pokemon Go PvP player from a great one? Is it knowing all your counts? Is it knowing how to properly time your charge moves? Or is there something more at play? Today, I'm going to be discussing the mental aspect of a Show 6 Pick 3 style format and how that can allow the best players to flourish. But first, a brief introduction. My name is Holmes/Henry. I'm one of the official casters for the Pokemon Go competitive circuit. And today, I'm going to be showcasing two sets from the most recent regional championship in San Antonio, Texas. First up, we'll be taking a look at Nighttime Clasher versus Jello Too Good, and secondly, the grand finals with Rise to the Occasion and Elite. We're going to be showcasing the games in order and how the battler strategies evolved throughout the course of the matches. The first match we'll be taking a look at, as promised, is the losers finals of Group E between Nighttime Clasher and Jello Too Good. Nighttime Clasher, a former regional champion, Jello Too Good, a newer competitor. Nighttime Clasher's strategy is centered around Corsola, trying to support it as best as possible so that way he can freely run the Pokemon. For Jello Too Good, he's running an adaptation of the Team Sceptile Ice used to get second place in Toronto. For game number one, it's a bad lead for Jello Too Good as he leads Shadow Drapion into Shadow Marowak. And unfortunately for Jello Too Good, he is actually ABA weak to the Marowak since both Drapion and Feraligatr have losing matchups. He's going to stay in, go for the Aqua Tail to get some chip damage, and send in the Shadow Feraligatr. Bone Club is reached by the Marowak. That is going to pressure a shield from the Feraligatr, and now we see a switch out into Drapion. Drapion, if it's even behind by one turn, loses this matchup against Feraligatr, but by grabbing a shield advantage, Nighttime Clasher now will be able to control the mid-game switch advantage. So things are not looking good for Jello Too Good, as there's a Corsola in the back awaiting his Azumarill, and Corsola does have a favorable matchup there. We do see the double shield from Jello Too Good, forcing all shields down from Nighttime Clasher. But Nighttime Clasher desynced the switch timers by staying in to throw the Bone Club, and this means Jello Too Good is actually able to switch out. Jello is going to be hit with an Aqua Tail. We see an undercharge from Nighttime Clasher. Jello is going to immediately undertap the Aqua Tail, covering for a potential snipe from the Marowak. Nighttime Clasher has a ton of energy available. We're now going to see a switch and a catch onto Corsola. But this has switch locked Nighttime Clasher's Corsola, and that means that Jello Too Good is going to get value out of the Feraligatr that was saved from earlier. So now Jello gets to send in the Feraligatr. Feraligatr gets to make the Hydro Cannon, and this just does way too much damage to the Corsola. Nighttime Clasher with a shake of his head. He knows despite the favorable team comp, it has all gone wrong, and Jello with the perfectly timed switch out into Azumarill, soaking this energy, and now Azumarill in the Zero Shields, so deadly against Nighttime Clasher's remaining Pokemon. He gets fully bubbled down. All he has left is a very low health Drapion and a very low health Marowak, both of which will be KO'd by one charge move. In comes the Marowak. Marowak is going to be KO'd by an Ice Beam, and all that's left is a Drapion with a fully resisted charge moveset. Drapion has all the energy it could ever ask for, but it's just not going to be enough to win this game. Even with a crunch debuff, it would not save him. The crunch debuff does not come through. He snipes with the Feraligatr, and despite a favorable team comp for Nighttime Clasher, Jello Too Good takes game one. Now, what I think is very interesting about this series is in game number two, we're going to see these battlers run back the exact same teams. Marowak versus the Shadow Drapion. So these battlers have changed nothing about the teams of three that they're running. All that they can change now is how they play it. So here we are going to see the Aqua Tail land on the Marowak. So far, everything is playing out identically to what it has before. Jello committing the shield. Nighttime Clasher is going to switch out into the Drapion. And so far, this looks like an exact replica of game number one. However, there's going to be an important difference later in this match. The Hydro Cannon will be shielded. It's going to be a CMP tie, and Jello, of course, going to shield, knowing that he will be able to connect with a Hydro Cannon and save the Feraligatr like he did in game number one. So the Hydro Cannon will be thrown before the crunch is reached. Nighttime Clasher is going to protect the Drapion, and now we are going to see Jello switch in the Drapion as before. Back-to-back Aqua Tails are reached. We know from the previous match, Nighttime Clasher went for an undercharge, and he's going for the same undercharge again. This undercharge, we actually see a crunch reached by Jello, covering for a potential catch onto Corsola, but Nighttime Clasher is not going to switch out. Switch locking the Corsola is what lost him the game before. He does get debuffed, but what he's going to do now is he is actually saving that Drapion. In comes Azumarill, there's the switch to Corsola, and now he's in a significantly better spot because Corsola KO'd that Drapion last time, and that gave Jello a free switch into Feraligatr, and Feraligatr was a huge problem for the Corsola. But now, Corsola can always farm up to back-to-back moves, meaning Jello will never have a good opportunity to switch in the Feraligatr since it's so far behind on energy. So with a slight adjustment in strategy, Nighttime Clasher goes from failing to convert a winning position in game 1 to completely winning that same position in game number 2. He goes for an undercharge. Nightshade will still pick up the knockout. Corsola is going to make the Nightshade, and identical teams have very different outcomes in this game 1 versus game number 2, and it goes to show how you play the game is equally as important to the Pokemon that you end up using. So Nighttime Clasher is going to take game number 2, and now the question will be, this is a best of 3 series, what will they do in game number 3? And you may have already guessed it from the subtle foreshadowing here, but in game number 3, we see the exact same teams one more time. Game 1, Jello was able to emerge victorious. Game 2, Nighttime Clasher made the adjustment. So how will Jello play it this time? Jello goes for the Aqua Tail. We see a switch in strategy from Nighttime Clasher, preserving the Marowak. There's a switch into Azumarill because you can't switch in a Feraligatr into a Marowak that's that healthy. So Nighttime Clasher with an adjustment to try and make that Feraligatr have less value, and Jello immediately responds by sending in the Azumarill. But by that Marowak giving up a shield so early, this now means that Feraligatr could be terrifying for Jello in the endgame. As Corsola versus Azumarill is typically a pretty soft loss for the Azumarill, but that's very okay for Jello. Jello does not want to win this matchup. Jello, at this point, his win condition is going to be energy advantage on the Feraligatr. Play rough, not going to be enough to knock out here. That is going to land. We now see the switch to Feraligatr getting a snipe, and a 2 Shadow Claw head start is going to make life very difficult. Nighttime Clasher farming up a ton of energy on that Marowak. The Feraligatr is taking a lot of damage throughout the course of this match due to the Mud Slaps. Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded, and now Nighttime Clasher is at back-to-back Bone Clubs, very close to 100 energy. Jello can undertap here and go for the Hydro Cannon, and that forces Nighttime Clasher out. He's forced to send in the Drapion. Drapion is going to take significant damage from that Hydro Cannon. Feraligatr still stuck in this matchup, unable to switch. We are going to see a shield. This Hydro Cannon is very valuable for Jello. The timer's up. He saves the Hydro Cannon, brings in the Drapion, and from previous games, we know at this health range, this Aqua Tail will not be lethal. The Aqua Tail connects, Drapion hangs on, gets the Aqua Tail, and this game is going to be a win because Feraligatr has that charge attack loaded. Marowak has a move as well, but Marowak is going to lose the CMP tie. And I think this was genuinely one of the most interesting series that happened this entire weekend, at least easily of day number 1, just due to the fact that we saw the exact same Pokemon used every time. So what mattered was the plays and the adjustments in strategy that they made. And now let's go to Grand Finals. Rise to the occasion, a very popular content creator versus Elite. Rise, a 3-time regional champion. Elite, a 2-time regional champion. Rise comes out of the winner's side of the bracket, meaning he needs to win 1 best of 5 series to become regional champion. For Elite, coming out of the loser's side, he's going to need to win 2 best of 5 series if he wants to take home his 3rd regional title. The leads are set for game number 1, and it's going to be a great lead for Elite as he leads Marowak into Shadow Drapion, and Rise is running an ABA strategy. Rise running ABA weak to the Marowak, and after looking at the team sheet, his team only has 1 Mud Slap resist. Diggersby can do pretty okay against Marowak neutrally, and Annihilate very same thing. It has the ability to boost through in the 2 shield, but outside of that, Toxapex, Feraligatr, Shadow Drapion all lose to Marowak. So for Elite, Elite is running a pretty standard line where he has the Marowak, Drapion as the safe switch, and he's going to have Azumarill as the hard check to Mandibuzz in the back. This Mandibuzz is on Air Slash, and the Mandibuzz being on Air Slash does mean that it does have a winning matchup against Drapion. So for Elite, this is a bit of a soft ABA team. Elite is going to fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide into the Mandibuzz will do solid damage, and for Elite, he now feels he has a completely winning position. Azumarill will be able to shut down that Mandibuzz, and in the back, it'll be Shadow Drapion versus Shadow Drapion, and that matchup is neutral enough that even up a shield, Rise will not be able to sweep. Here the Mandibuzz tries for the farm down, and Rise realizes there's a hard counter to Mandibuzz in the back, so he's letting all that energy go, trying to sweep with the Drapion, but unfortunately it is not to be. As Rise will get to see the third Pokemon here, which is valuable information, but he's not going to be able to win. As these Drapions are going to trade Aqua Tails in the mirror, 2 Aqua Tails can land, because 2 Aqua Tails plus 8 Poison Stings are not enough to knock out. Rise is going to protect health on the Drapion, holding out hope that he's going to be able to sweep, but unfortunately, it's just not going to happen as Azumarill hits the field. Azumarill a complete wall to the charge attacks from Drapion. So this is going to be a game 1 win for Elite. So Rise made a risky gamble saying that Marowak, that is a problem for this team, will not be on the lead, but Elite called the bluff. And now for game number 2, it's going to be up to Rise to make an adjustment in strategy. Will he switch up the lead? Will he bring different Pokemon? Will we see Pokemon like the Diggersby and the Annihilate brought, as those have at least neutral play against that very polarizing Marowak? For Elite, this is a big win, as again, he needs to win 2 best-of-5 series. Leads are set for game number 2, and it's disastrous for Rise. He again dares Elite to lead Marowak with running that Feraligatr Drapion core that is ABA weak. And unfortunately, Elite leads the Marowak, Elite running back the exact same team. Rise has almost the same team, but he has benched the Mandibuzz for Diggersby, so he has made an important adjustment, as Diggersby can do very well against, or at least neutrally against, this Marowak, and very positively against Shadow Drapion. So Rise knows he's getting fully farmed down here if he stays in. He's able to grab the final shield, and this Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded, and now an adjustment in strategy. The safe switch to Diggersby. Diggersby up a shield versus Azumarill. If the first Scorching Sands debuffs, Diggersby can make Azumarill's life very difficult here. So the Scorching Sands from the Diggersby is going to connect. It's a 30% chance at an attack drop, and it does not come through. Ice Beam no shielded by Rise, but this potentially allows Rise to get an energy advantage on his Feraligatr or the Drapion, because getting an energy lead on either one may be enough to outpace that Marowak before the Marowak is able to make it to back-to-back moves. So Azumarill here going to fire off this Ice Beam, and now if you're Elite, you're in a difficult position. You're going to need to pivot out. In comes the Drapion. Elite pivots, but he threw a bubble first, and he accidentally farms too much. He's gonna lose so much energy on that Marowak, a crucial misplay, and the adjustment by Rise forces Elite into a misplay, and now Elite is just in a losing position. In comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr, with a shield to hide behind, will guaranteed make it to a Hydro Cannon. The Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. The switch clock not up for Elite. The Hydro Cannon will absolutely devastate this Drapion. The adjustment in strategy and team from Rise in that mid game appeared to throw off Elite a little bit. He did accidentally farm too much. He loses crucial energy on the Marowak, and Rise, despite leading ABA weak to Marowak into Marowak twice, has now forced it to be a 1-to-1 set, as this Aqua Tail from Elite does not come anywhere close to KOing the Drapion. So Rise gets the equalizer, and now this game 3 upcoming here will be absolutely pivotal. For game number 3, these battlers lock in, and it's Marowak into Mandibuzz. Elite sticking with this same team, but Rise with the adjustment. Rise running Feraligatr and Toxapex in the back, and Elite has Azumarill. So this adjustment by Rise looks to be a highly successful one. Aqua Tail is going to connect, and Drapion is not in a good position here, as this is an Air Slash Mandibuzz versus Snarl. Drapion can win. Air Slash adds up tremendously on the Drapion, as Drapion has already lost a third of its total HP. But for Elite, this is the goal of the Drapion safe switch, is there's not a Pokemon on Rise's team outside of Annihilate that's comfortable switching into a Drapion that's up energy. So Elite's goal here is to try and soft lose this matchup if at all possible. But if you're Rise, you have to know there's a Marowak in the back. So I imagine when we see the Azumarill, we'll see a pivot out into Feraligatr, but no. Rise makes a play to play for alignment. He wants Toxapex on the Azumarill, but this could mean that Marowak will be massively, massively problematic, because Feraligatr loses the 2-shield versus the Marowak. In comes Toxapex. There's a quick switch into the Marowak, answered with the Feraligatr. And as you notice there, Elite did not throw a bubble. He waited to see what was brought in, switched instantly into the Marowak, and now Marowak does have quite a lot of energy. Feraligatr is going to strike first with back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Elite forced to go down 2 shields to 0. He's going to exit this matchup with 100 energy, needing to apply a massive amount of damage to the Toxapex. He's at 100, so he is going to throw on alignment here, going for the Bone Club. Bone Club shielded up by the Toxapex. Next, he can go for 1 Mud Slap and the Bone Club, throwing on good timing to only allow 1 free turn of energy to Rise. Rise committing both shields, but there's a third Bone Club ready to go. This is a super effective charge attack, but this is a Toxapex. Toxapex, monstrously bulky, hangs on no problem. 1 more Mud Slap, there's the switch to Azumarill, and now this puts Rise in a bit of a difficult position. Rise needs to leave close to Brine energy to be able to KO the Marowak before it makes a move. Marowak is going to be a big threat unless there is that loaded energy. So Rise is going to go for an undercharge on the Sludge Wave, but it's too much of an undercharge. He's going to try for the farm down, but we're about to see something that should never happen, and that is Azumarill bubbling down a Toxapex. That was close to the right undercharge for Rise, but not quite enough. It left it just too healthy, and Elite, keeping the same team 3 games, is able to take a 2-1 lead. And for game 4, an adjustment from both trainers. Rise leading Diggersby, trying to catch that Marowak into a neutral matchup, and Elite has actually led Drapion, and he has Dugong and Marowak in the back. This is an uncomfortable matchup for the Drapion. However, the worst thing about this matchup as the Diggersby is that the Drapion has shields to hide behind, and Drapion has a massive pacing advantage, which means that Drapion is always able to get the Diggersby extremely low, whereas the Drapion still remains fairly healthy because no charge attacks have landed on it. The Aqua Tail is going to connect. Drapion tries to go for the CMP tie, but Diggersby is just going to go for the overfarm. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded up, and now do we see a switch out here from Elite? No, we do not. Elite not able to get the switch out. He still has 1 shield remaining, and he's going to let this go. He knows that Marowak is at its strongest when shields are up. There's a pivot into Feraligatr, and for Elite, he knows Feraligatr up energy in the 1s, even if it's at even energy in the 1s, will beat Marowak, so he's forced to stay in with the Dugong. Hydro Cannon lands, that will do substantial damage, and now he's going to go for the Drill Run. Rise, only 1 shield left. He's not going to use it here. The Drill Run connects. That's valuable damage. Hydro Cannon will be reached, but Dugong does not appear to be in Hydro Cannon plus 2 Shadow Claw range. Hydro Cannon is going to connect. Dugong will be able to hang on, and Dugong will now go for the Icy Wind. If Rise shields, he can get the farm down. So we're actually going to see an undercharge here and a switch. Marowak into the Drapion, and suddenly things are looking very good for Elite. Elite will shield up the first move here. Aqua Tail, of course, not particularly threatening, but at this point, you're going to have to shield 1, so you may as well shield the first. Rise realizes he needs to get damage on this Marowak, because this is his only way of doing so. He's not going to make another charge attack for the rest of the game. The Feraligatr threw its energy at the Dugong. I believe it only has 2 residual. There's a very low health Diggersby, and there's a Feraligatr. Rise waiting his timer, hoping his switch clock will be available, and the switch clock was not up by about 1 single second. Brings in the Diggersby. It gets KO'd by the Bone Club. Feraligatr gets mud slapped down. Elite wins the best of 5 series, and we go to a second best of 5. And in this first matchup, we see an adjustment in strategy from Elite. Elite, again, benching the Marowak after running it 3 games in a row, and he's now benched it back-to-back games. But Rise is running back his original line, the Feraligatr, Drapion, Mandibuzz. So for Elite, having Marowak in the back, this is going to be very, very tough to play his way out of. He goes for an Icy Wind, and that's a stone-cold no-shield by Rise to the occasion. Rise actually choosing not to throw here. He wants to get as much residual energy as he possibly can. Icy Wind shielded, Hydro Cannon reached. This is a double debuffed Hydro Cannon. This will set up a pretty nice farm down for the Feraligatr, and Elite will not allow that. Instead, he's going to switch in the Marowak. Marowak so strong in this matchup unless it's aligned against Mandibuzz, and in comes Mandibuzz. So this immediately puts Elite on the back foot. These timers are misaligned, so Elite will potentially have the ability to try and save this Marowak. He will go for the Rock Slide. I'm pretty sure that the Rock Slide nerf when it happened was at the same time that Marowak got access to Mud Slap. I'm pretty sure that the reason they ended up nerfing Rock Slide was specifically because of this Pokemon. Because imagine if 2 Rock Slides were able to KO Mandibuzz here. Marowak would be even stronger than it already is. But since Rock Slide did get nerfed in September, we will now see the switch into the Dugong, landing the Ice Shard and forcing energy from Rise. Rise will go for an undercharge, as he would love an ability to get farm out of this matchup, and he will. Feraligatr getting energy, and that Feraligatr energy is very difficult to deal with, as you have a very low health Marowak, and you have the Ariados. Sending in the Marowak, trying for the farm down, but Feraligatr with a 1 HP survive, leaving with the Hydro Cannon, and that clutch IV survive from Rise. The bulky Feraligatr will secure him the win, as up a shield, Drapion will very comfortably take this series. Drapion, even getting debuffed, will be able to make double crunch, and that will be enough to knock out this Ariados. So going for the crunch, and as you're going to see, even at -1, this just does so much damage. Ariados, more of an attack-weighted Pokemon, not known for its bulk, and here, the absolute nail in the coffin, a stone-cold catch onto that Mandibuzz. This catch did not matter, the game was already won, but honestly, it's a little bit of psychological damage sent his opponent's way, saying, I didn't even have to do this catch, but I did it anyway. So Rise running back an old strategy, and he's able to take advantage of the fact that Elite tried to switch it up, anticipating another Mandibuzz lead. Now, what is Elite's change for game number 2? He's running back old reliable. Rise runs the same line as he just did the previous game, and Rise is immediately put on the defensive, as this is a very difficult spot to play out of. Hydro Cannon into the Marowak is going to be shielded. We saw Rise be able to play his way out of this before, being ABA weak, but he had Diggersby as the third. He pivoted into the Diggersby, baited out the Azu, and then was able to get an energy advantage on Drapion, as Drapion's energy is quite scary. But now, Rise doesn't have the Diggersby to pivot into, so what does he do? He is going to make the adjustment to pivot Drapion into a Marowak. The goal here being is the most logical way to neutralize Drapion's energy is to go Azumarill, and that's exactly what Elite does. Elite sends in the Azumarill to neutralize the Drapion energy, but this is a very nice play by Rise, as baiting out the Azumarill can free up the Mandibuzz to put in work later in the match. Another crunch is going to be reached, and this Azumarill is rapidly losing a lot of HP. The crunch is going to connect. We do not see a debuff. Elite throwing one bubble, the max he can overfarm in the situation, and he will go for the Ice Beam. Ice Beam is going to KO. In comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr was fully energy dry, and that is disastrous for Rise. If he got that Hydro Cannon, he was in a position to win, but now this Azumarill, thanks to the perfect overfarm, will be able to land a charge attack on the Mandibuzz, able to get to the Ice Beam, and this just inflicts too much damage. This now means that Drapion will be able to take care of it. We're now going to see the switch into the Marowak. Marowak gets to the Rock Slide anyway, and unfortunately, what appeared to be a very, very nice bit of strategy from Rise, save switching Drapion into a shieldless Marowak to force out the Azumarill, unfortunately doesn't quite work out the way he hoped, because that Feraligatr just got outpaced, and that was enough to unfortunately where this game ends in a loss. Rise in that moment was playing to his only win condition, which is that it's an Ariados in the back and he could go for a double Aerial Ace, which he does get to versus the Drapion, but obviously Drapion only takes neutral. So Rise played to the win con that was basically his only opportunity there, which was if there's an Ariados in the back, I can win. If there's not, I can't win. So unfortunately, I did like the adjustment from Rise, but it didn't quite pan out. And now we see another adjustment. This is going to be an important game 3. Who can gain control of this series? Rise running back the same ABA line, but this time it's the Diggersby version. So the pivot into the Drapion didn't work as well as he'd hoped, so now he brings back the Diggersby as the Pokemon he can pivot into. Diggersby will be able to draw out the Azumarill, and last time Elite was actually a little bit uncharacteristically slow in sending back in that Marowak, and that caused Drapion to get a move. Elite lost a lot of energy, and that really put him on the defensive. There is Diggersby. Elite wisely saving the energy. He's going to need the energy for the Pokemon that are actually going to be weak to that Marowak. Diggersby going to be instantly hit with an Ice Beam, will see the no shield by Rise, and Rise will again fish for that 30% debuff chance on Scorching Sands. Rise did not throw first there, which is interesting. So he actually did not want to try for a debuff right off the bat. He does get the debuff here, and now he will go for another Scorching Sands. But his play is absolutely to try and get an energy advantage on either Feraligatr or on the Drapion. He will still have a shield to hide behind for that Pokemon as well, but for Elite, knowing how he lost game 2 in that first set, you have to imagine he's looking to pivot here instantly, and he does. He pivots back into the Marowak. Feraligatr gets fully farmed down, and Elite is going to take control of this series as he's now going to be up 2 games to 1. So Rise went to the winning strategy from game 2 of set 1, but Elite corrected the misplay of that slow switch out, and now with optimal play, he slams the door on Rise in this important game 3. Elite only 1 win away from becoming regional champion. In game 4, Rise brings back the Mandibuzz lead, and it finds its target into the Marowak. The safe switch Drapion. Elite was able to play his way out of this matchup before. He throws the Aqua Tail, but disaster strikes. He throws on alignment, and that is a massive blunder. These battlers have been battling all weekend. Dozens and dozens of battles against some of the best battlers the entire world has to offer. And that amount of battles can honestly cause a lot of mental fatigue. And these battlers, this is now the 8th battle they've played against each other. They know how much is on the line. And under these lights, unfortunately, Elite throwing on alignment there, an uncharacteristic error, now forces him to shield in this matchup. So Elite, previously, this line was able to beat a very similar line from Rise. However, due to that throw on alignment, he's forced to go down a shield because he needed to get the Mandibuzz lower. And for Rise, he now has a very clear path to victory, which is just bringing in the Feraligatr, farming down, and Feraligatr energy just beating everything. The fatigue of the weekend doesn't just affect Elite, however, as Rise now brings in Drapion. Drapion gets a Poison Sting head start, but when the Marowak is brought in, suddenly things are looking very difficult for Rise. Rise is able to land the Aqua Tail here, but had he brought in that Feraligatr, he would have been in so much of a better position against the Marowak, as even if Elite brought in the Azumarill, Feraligatr up energy and up a shield can very comfortably beat it and exit with energy. Whereas now, unfortunately, things are looking a little bit difficult for Rise. Rise is going to fire off the Hydro Cannon into the Azumarill. The switch timers are misaligned. Rise will have an ability to get back to his clock before Elite does. Play Rough into Feraligatr is going to be shielded, and Feraligatr, due to its lightning fast pacing, will have the ability to burn the clock and switch out. Hydro Cannon into the Azumarill. We see a no shield by Elite. The switch timer will be up for Rise. Rise, however, is not going to switch out just yet. Instead, he's going to go for a CMP tie, firing off this Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon shielded up by the Azumarill. And from here, Rise should still be in the driver's seat of this match. Had the Feraligatr been switched in, as we'll see a simul switch out here, the Marowak cannot get the farm down because Rise had 1 residual energy on that Drapion. Had Rise brought in Feraligatr, I argue that it would have been a cleaner endgame for him, but either way, he is still able to emerge victorious. It did get a little close in that endgame, but he is able to secure the Game 4 win, and now we move to Game 5. The stakes have never been higher, and the lights have never been brighter. What's at stake here is the title of regional champion. These battlers have to be exhausted at this point. An entire weekend of battling. This is now the 9th battle that these battlers have played against each other consecutively. Elite has led Marowak 6 of the 8 battles. Rise has led ABA Week to that Marowak in 5 of 8 battles. So this is the final mind game. Will Elite run Marowak, knowing Rise loves to lead weak to it? Will Rise make the adjustment and lead Mandibuzz? And if so, does Elite predict that? Take a moment while we wait for this battle to start and make your predictions. The leads are set. Game number 5. Rise is going to make the prediction that it's the Marowak lead, but it's not. Elite goes with the Azumarill lead. Safe switch into Feraligatr, and Elite is going to respond with Marowak. Elite did actually wait the turn to try and switch out instantly if it was the Feraligatr safe switch, but the game did not visually update for him, and that means he's actually very far behind in this matchup, forcing him to go down 2 shields early in this match. He's actually so far behind that his Marowak is now unable to win the 2 shield because of that game error. This will force him to throw back-to-back Bone Clubs. Rise is going to let this through, and now a 2-0 shield Annihilate looks devastating in the back. Elite is going to farm up a ton of energy, but he's able to save the energy with a catch onto Azumarill, and now he has close to 100 energy loaded on a Marowak, and Azumarill is going to be answered with a 2-shield Annihilate. Annihilate honestly really likes the fact that Azumarill has already taken some damage. Is this ever a range where double Rage Fist can KO? The answer is no. Ice Beam from the Azumarill, even if Rise calls this, it would still do way too much damage, so that's why Elite is safe going for the Ice Beam here. Elite is continuing to farm up. Rise knows a Rage Fist will not KO. Now the question is, Elite's clock is up. When does he go for the combo play? Ice Beam is shielded. Rise undertaps, predicting the combo play, but it does not happen. Elite stays in the matchup. Rage Fist is going to land. Elite, there's the switch and the combo play into the Marowak. This Bone Club will not knock out, however. Bone Club is going to land. Rise switches, tries the catch on the Mandibuzz, but Elite with the perfect prediction, predicting the switch in, going for the Rock Slide. That deals massive super effective damage. And unfortunately, this Marowak is a runaway train getting to another Rock Slide. This is going to deal massive damage to the Mandibuzz, and that is going to be game over in this matchup, as there's just no way for Mandibuzz to deal enough damage to this Shadow Drapion. For Drapion, all you have to do is farm up to the back-to-back Aqua Tails. The back-to-back Aqua Tails are reached, which means this game is over. A switch does not matter. Staying in does not matter, because there's 2 moves loaded. Rise says GG's, and Elite, after an absolute incredible set of 9 games, is going to be the San Antonio Regional Champion. All in all, I think this was one of my favorite grand finals that I have ever watched. I actually really enjoyed the fact that for a lot of these games, these battlers continued to try and run the same strategy, but when they deployed that strategy was actually very intentional. And it was really nice because I feel like you could see the mind games on display even in the Nighttime Clash or Jello series, but especially in this grand finals with Elite and Rise. You could see the battlers, the uppercuts they land, the counter punches that they fight back in retaliation, proved to be some unbelievable PvP to watch. And big congratulations to Elite for winning the entire tournament. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the More Slice Henry channel, my second channel. If you enjoy content like this, I post every Monday, so please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn notifications on so that way you never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next week.